So I'm Liz Suck. I'm the Executive Director of Oakland Rising. It's now official, no longer interim. Thank you so much. And I'm, very excited about kind of where the direction of Oakland Rising is going, but I'm really excited today to bring on Ecat Burton and Christina from the Budget Bureau from the city, because the mayor dropped their budget a whole week late. And the Budget Bureau and the folks in the administration, the staff, weren't able to really share out to the public how to use this new budget tool. And I like the tool, but it's pretty tricky, right? It's like you have to be pretty savvy. And I think I'm really savvy. I love data. I love looking at numbers, but I still have questions, right? And so I want to make sure that the folks in Oakland get to see our budget and understand how to use the tool. And Ecat is here today to help walk us through some of that. So we might get to a place in this conversation where you all can put into the chat any questions that you have. And then if there is a budget, a part of the budget that you want us to take a deeper dive, because we're going to take a deeper dive into one or two line items so that we could, or departments, so that we can see how to actually use the tool by looking at something specific. So I'll pass it over to Ecat to introduce themselves.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Ecat Burton. I also go by Ecat or Cat, and I have been a longtime volunteer of Oakland Rising. So excited, Liz, to see you take the role now. And, honestly, I have to actually thank Oakland Rising for putting me into this position in a way, because I actually first got involved in budgets as a community advocate activist when I was doing the Oakland Budget Advisory Commission, and the former ED of Oakland Rising, Jessamine, helped to write my recommendation letter to be on that commission. Yes. So in some ways it feels like I'm coming full circle, that I now get to share with the community how to use this particular budget. But it really was the sweat, tears, and a lot of hope and excitement of the Budget Bureau team to bring this out to the community, because ultimately our goal is making the budget much more understandable for everyday people to really know where their city dollars are going to. And we realize part of that is helping you get this information in a way that makes more sense to you. So we know that this is our first time doing OpenGov, that there are still glitches, still bugs that we're trying to figure out. And my hope is, in doing this walkthrough, is that you can understand it better. And we really are open ears, so to speak, in terms of wanting to know what people's issues are, so that we can make it even better. And in future years, it can be better. So happy to give this tour. I'm going to start sharing my screen now. And if you all can tell me if you can, Liz, by you'll be the one to tell me. Can you see what I see?
I can. And if you wanted to, the internet feels a little choppy. So if you wanted to, turn off your camera, I think that would be okay too.
Yeah, let me do that so that you all can see it better. I'm going to turn off my camera now. So you all, hopefully this will help. And then Liz, I'll be sure to speak more slowly so you all can make sure if there is any lag that it's moving in time with me. So everyone, I first want to acknowledge that this is a big transition for us as a community to have the budget on this interactive website. We're using this company called opengov.com. And what you're looking at right now is what we're calling the landing page of OpenGov. And this is basically, if you were to imagine yourself having a physical copy of the budget book in your hand, this is basically the same exact thing, where we're showing you on the landing page all the most important links and places that you want to go. So first thing I just want to highlight for everyone is you should be seeing on this white bar where we're basically introducing you to the book And we have this linked section called navigation tips and FAQ. This is a great place for you to go to if you have general questions on how to navigate. So I just want to highlight that to everyone. And then what we're going into is actually the budget book itself. And this first bar of what we're seeing is what we consider the most important parts of the budget book that we think everyone's going to be interested in. So we have the message from the mayor, which is her transmittal letter. We have a budget guide that gives you basically a breakdown and understanding of our budget process as a whole. We have this page called the impact of this budget on city services. And this is where we're discussing the service impacts and the equity analysis done on those service impacts. Then we scroll down to this next section where basically we're going over in this first section on the left, the city departments. We're giving you our overall financial summaries. The third box on the right, on the farmost part, the city organizational chart, where you can just see our org charts. And then we have what we consider, just again, important information for everyone to have, the police budget transparency information. So this is for people who are interested in really understanding how the police budget is different. So this page in particular tells you a lot. In the middle, we have the public input and community engagement. This is where we're letting people know how you can participate. And in the third section, we're talking about just like our overall budget legislation and associated policies. And then if you keep on scrolling down, where we get to where it says table of contents, this is where it is very much similar to the actual budget book itself, where we have every single part of the budget linked, where you can, if you had again like an old physical copy, this would be the exact same thing. Where you can look at everything by department, you can look at expenditures across, but the one part of our OpenGov portal that we think is actually most powerful and impressive is at the very bottom. Sorry, actually, I thought it was at the very bottom, but it looks like I maybe have missed it, is our transparency portal. Here it is. Sorry, it's at the top. See, even I am orienting better on how to find everything. So this transparency portal is where we think that the community is going to find the greatest use of this new OpenGov platform. But I thought we could go into this maybe first after we walk through showing you how to look up general information. So Liz, is there something in particular that you'd want us to cover at the more general level before we dive into the details?
Yeah, do you actually mind scrolling up a little bit? Because I wanted to see two things at the top of this is the impact statement.
Okay, yep.
Do you mind clicking on that so folks
Yeah.
can kind of see?
Yeah.
And because what I really liked about this is it actually showed the equity impact on the department, and then in terms of its impact, both economically and racially in the city, correct?
Yes, correct. Yes, so for everyone, the place where you can understand the impact of this budget overall is in this section called the impact of this budget on city services. It's the box on the most right, and I'm going to open it up and it's going to become its own sheet. And when we look at it here, you can see from the beginning that we're basically dividing up this section based on the priorities that our city council has laid out. And so each section covers a different priority. So the first section listed is the section that council put as their #1 priority, which was affordable housing and homelessness solutions. And so what you'll do as you can scroll down here is we basically categorize under each city council priority whether something is an enhancement or a reduction. If it's an enhancement, then this is a part of the budget that is, in our opinion, going to bring more service to the community on this particular priority. And then what we do listed under these subcategories of enhancement and reductions is we list the specific department, and we tell you what is the particular enhancement that is being added. So right now you all would be looking at human services. And this first line is basically about the amount of homelessness funding that they're being dedicated in their budget. And you'll see that the format it is where first we list the service impact of what this money is going to do. And then where you then see this second bullet where it says equity consideration, this is where we indicate the equity result of this particular change. And you'll see as you scroll down that for each particular item, we have a equity consideration written. And so I'm just going to scroll through more slowly, and I'm trying to get to a place where we can show you what happens next, which is we now go into public safety and violence prevention. And you'll see here that we have something that's written out as enhancements. And as we scroll down further, you will get to a place where we actually talk about reductions right here for public safety and violence prevention. And I'm going to go scroll back up to the beginning of the public safety and violence prevention and just note that one of the things that we wanted people to understand about this particular budget is that the police department's budget was entirely redone. It was actually rebuilt from scratch. And the reason why it was rebuilt from scratch was for the public to have a real clear understanding of what are the costs of police services. And so this is a major part of this budget, and for which we've dedicated various different parts of the OpenGov platform to sharing more information to the public. But overall, this transparency is to support the current discussion happening right now in our community about what kinds of public safety Oakland residents want. So we can go into that a little bit further, but to scroll down, I just also want to highlight the other priorities that the city council has made. So their third priority, once we get to it, is—
I just want to be clear, Ecat, that a lot of these are really based off the city council's priorities. And thus the department and the bureau, the budget bureau, really worked on incorporating these pieces into this budget and into this narrative.
Yeah, so to your question, Liz, when we were describing the service impacts and the equity analysis, it was from this understanding that these are the 4 things that city council wants us to focus on the most.
Right.
And so each of these sections will explain, for instance, for the good jobs and vibrant economy section, one of the things that we talk about as our first enhancement is that the Workplace and Employment Standards Office, which is primarily responsible for enforcing various different labor ordinances across the city. We describe the ways in which their office having a certain number of personnel positions restored, how that actually helps them in accomplishing their goals.
Right.
And so that's an example of what you're discussing is it's really tailored to show both the public and council, the ways in which this budget is making investments across those 4 categories.
Right.
And the fourth priority is clean and healthy and sustainable neighborhoods.
Right. I just wanted to go back to the Department of Workplace Employment Standards. This really came out of the organizing work of East Bay Alliance for Sustainable Economy and Measure Z, the work that they did to develop this. And in fact, the city administrator really did a lot of work to try to prevent this from seeing its full fruition. So it was really great to see the city council get behind the development of this because, throughout the pandemic and before, city council has put up standards, including, like overtime pay and emergency alert systems and a minimum a living wage for hotel workers. And there was no way to enforce these things to happen without this department overseeing this. So, many employees were continuing to be exploited by their employers. And so to be able to see that, the organizing that was happening in the community and that city council being able to hear that and then seeing DWES really come into fruition in its fullest in this way on the budget, hopefully, is something that the city council continues to be a part, to make this a part of it, right?
Mhm.
And that this will be the permanent part of the budget. And just to be clear, the mayor's budget is just a proposal. It's
Correct.
just the first step. And then throughout this month, the city council is hearing back from you, from the community, and in their budget forums and town halls. And then that will help to inform them as they continue to build out, or to as their counter proposal, and then that will get voted on by June 30th. The counter proposal presented by the city council president, Nikki Fortunato Bass, will happen on June 10th. That will get released June 10th. Look out for Monday meals then, because we're hoping to have City Council President Nikki Bass on Monday meals to talk about that proposal. And then you'll see it on June 17th. So there's also the tab at the landing page, right? What tells you how people can get engaged, right, Ecat?
Yeah, so that place where people can understand how they can get engaged and is updated is this public input and community engagement tab, which if we open up right here, this is where we display the information as it goes live. And you can see here right now that some of the council members have already given, the particular virtual links that they're using for you to register for their particular town halls. And then as you can see below, here we are also letting people know when the city council budget meetings are happening,
right,
where they can get this information.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so I don't know if you think this is a good time for us to hop into the transparency portal, Liz.
Yeah, let's do that.
One
Well,
thing
did you want to
okay.
give a little bit about like part of the, because when I started, I actually didn't notice the transparency portal, but what I did was I scrolled all the way to the bottom and I was looking up the more traditional way of looking at the budget,
Yes,
which is the revenue and the expenditures
yes,
tables, right?
yes, yeah. So, so let's use this as a particular example. Say
Mhm,
you go in particular that we're going to go to the expenditure tables.
mhm,
Again, this is the traditional way, as if you were in an actual book. Again, you could click on this link called expenditure tables by type.
mhm.
And when you open up this page, which it's opening up and loading, is you can see that we begin this page where we explain basically the different kinds of personnel and overhead expenditure types, so you can
Mhm.
understand what we mean when we're talking about them, as well as what are typical non-personnel and expenditure types, the biggest of which is operations and maintenance, what
Mhm.
we like to say in city speak as O&M.
Mhm.
And what happens is you can then basically come down to this first particular graph, and you can see in this particular graph, sorry, as I'm adjusting it right now, where we actually show you what the city's budget is spent on. So if you're
Right.
looking at this pie chart right now, you'll see that there's the pie chart itself,
Mhm.
where if you scroll, there's certain parts you can see how it's being highlighted. And then I just
Mhm.
want to note this widget at the bottom, which is called
Right.
a slider. And you can actually slide and see, like right now, it's the default is for it to be set at fiscal year 22, 23. But you can slide it down to fiscal year 21, 22, which is year
Mhm.
one of the budget. You
Mhm.
can also scroll backwards to what our current budget is, which is the fiscal year 2021 mid-cycle budget. And
Mhm.
finally, the last part of the widget is where you can look at our actuals for the prior completed year, which is fiscal year 1920. And
Mm.
so just with this alone right here is you can see that for the most part, our personnel and overhead takes up the majority of our budget, which
Right.
isn't surprising because most of what we're paying for is staff. The
Right.
fun part is where we talk about which staff we're paying for. And
Yes.
and so, onto that question, we can delve a little bit more deeply. But I just
Mhm.
want to point out to everyone that this is the part of OpenGov that starts to get really interesting for users, is how you can basically break things down and understand more of how things are broken down. And this is best done in the transparency portal. But I do
Right.
want to show people that we actually have listed right here. We show you what the breakdown of our spending is by, for instance, salaries, retirement, and fringe benefits. And right now it's in a bar graph, but if you say you wanted to change it to a line graph, because that's easier for you to understand, you can click on these buttons on the side to pick something that makes most sense to you. I don't think a pie graph will be as helpful. No. But again, you can see again how the budget changes along these 3 item types across this span of time.
Right. Great, thank you. So yeah, that's great. And so what I ended up doing, and I'm sure a lot of folks did, was that we kind of went to this place and was like taking a deeper dive into each of the pieces. And I was like, oh my God, I can't remember what the last thing I looked at, and the comparison and all of the things, and keeping track of that seemed really hard. But then your office and you and Christina like showed me the transparency portal. So once I took a deeper dive into that, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool, because it does offer a transparency that's a little different than a very flat, what do you call it? The tables.
Yes.
And it provided a little bit more narrative. I did want to point out, if you don't mind hopping over to that, as you're hopping over to it, is, so
I just want to point out that once you get to the actual individual pages like this, you'll notice there's this link called homepage, and then there's this link called transparency portal. So we try to provide on multiple pages the link directly to the transparency portal. So I'm going to click there now. And this is where you get to go what we call under the hood of Oakland city budget. And I'm happy to explain this in more detail, but what were you about to say, Liz?
Thank you. The independent journalist, Jaime Omar Yassin, he put out an article recently and was showing that actually some of the tables inside the transparency portal, if you scroll down a little bit.
Yeah, are you talking about this table right here?
Yeah, so if the little widgets on the left-hand side, like the little triangles pointing down and they open up.
Yes.
So what ends up happening when you do that, when you scroll all the way to the bottom, it cuts off the totals. You can't actually see the totals when you start opening things just to get more clarity, or like looking for more extra detail, like this one does. But there was some other ones where I was looking in, say, the rent one. There was one about rent and housing. I can't remember now. But sometimes when you do that, the bottom gets cut off. And then also, because they're just, the PDF form is just a photo, is basically a PDF of the website. Those also get cut off. So you can't really see what the totals are. So if you're not on the portal or on OpenGov, it's kind of hard for folks. So it feels like for folks that maybe because it's a new system, or because people start getting ideas around that maybe the mayor or the administration is trying to keep information from us, make it difficult for us. So I'm just wanting to let you all know so that we could maybe get it fixed, so that folks can actually see the things.
Yeah, I'll turn my video back on and say, I appreciate you letting me know about it, because this is the first time it's come to my attention. I have my coworkers, they are working on this as well. And, you have to really look at OpenGov as a website that we're actually all learning how to design and use. So we went from being just regular finance people to now being website developers. And I think if anyone in the audience,
look at that.
if anyone in the audience is a website developer, I think the first thing you learn a lot about is how, setting up your website involves a lot of back end work. And, this is quite a substantial website we've created for the public. And, setting up the individual tables is also a lot of work. So I would urge, anyone in the community who is seeing something that may in fact just be a glitch that we're just not aware of is happening, to communicate that and let us know that. I think, not to give more work to my coworkers in the digital services team, but the city of Oakland does have a way that you can use our Twitter to reach out to us about particular issues. So that may be one way that we can hear back from you all as to what you're finding.
Hi everyone, Kat, it's Kristen. I just want to make note that you're right, Liz, when you're within the book, just because we were bound by like actual website and the design of how it goes. So some of the tables might be cut off in the actual book, but once you get to this transparency portal, there should be sliders both up and down and left and right so that nothing gets cut off. And we are kind of limited because the PDF version is just a PDF of the website. So it's really not optimized to see the most information. But I believe we did try our best to download everything, that you see on the transparency portal or any graphs or tables that you find in the book are downloadable. And those were inserted in the PDF as Excel sheets in total. Those weren't broken down by specific departments, but that information still should be searchable in the PDF. But again, if, like Kat said, if there's something specific that you find or anyone else finds, to please let us know, because we are also working with the new system. So we want to make sure that we're getting out the information as best as possible.
Appreciate that. Yeah, so like, for example, in the Housing and Community Development Department, the expenditures, if you click on one of these arrows to open up to get more details, it just cuts off. The sliders don't work to go down further. Just as an example, and so it might just be something that I appreciate being able to bring it up here so that you all can figure it out, because I know that you all would want to do that as well.
Yeah, we do. And I think one of the things that I've been learning as a part of doing this is, OpenGov is a little bit wonky, and I definitely recommend, we recommend particular browsers to be used with looking at OpenGov.
Oh, that's a good suggestion.
And we as a team specifically think that Chrome is actually the best browser to look at OpenGov. So that may also be a part of understanding that there's actually ways that you can kind of manipulate the tables yourself. And I could demo that if people want to see how that's possible, so that they can understand that, again, it just may just be a little bit of the features of the OpenGov platform itself that they may be running into. But certainly send us that article so we can follow up with, you said his name is Javier?
No, with
Jaime.
Omar Yassin. I'll share the article with you.
Yeah.
And it's I think it's just really great to be able to figure that piece out, because y'all are working for that transparency. So
yes.
But maybe we could take that deeper dive into this piece here.
Yeah. So let me orient everyone. So hopefully if y'all are following my mouse, you'll see we are now at what we call the transparency portal. And I just want to orient everyone on a key part of the transparency portal, which is there is this left side toolbar where you see the City of Oakland emblem of the oak tree that has a slider attached to it, or a scroll bar. And when you use that slider on the left-hand side, what you'll see is there are all these different items listed, and what do they mean? So I want to point this part out to you first, because this is a really critical part that I'm happy to demo live. So you'll see this first, I'm clicking on this first item, and these are basically different reports that we have uploaded to allow people to really dive into the budget information. And you'll notice that these first 3 reports listed
Oh,
have
cut off.
these, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, so these first 3 reports listed have these 4 dots to the next to them.
Mhm.
And what these 4 dots indicate is these are reports that actually have raw data in them,
Mm.
which means that these are, honestly, these 3 reports are probably where you're gonna have the most fun, really diving into the details. The reports below them, as you notice, have these 2 arrows, not right next to each other. And what this means is that we have preloaded these reports with particular information that is specific to the title of that particular report name. So if I were to click on something that was called GPF revenue, when I click on that report, what will load up on the main page to the right of the tab bar is where you can actually look at a breakdown of all the different kinds of revenues that go into our general purpose fund. And you'll see that for this particular table, it goes all the way back until 2003, all the way up until now. Another thing I want to point out about the tab bar, the left sidebar, is that, again, there are particular reports about particular items, but again, one thing that the community may be particularly interested in is we created some items specifically around the police itself. And then when you get to the very bottom of this left sidebar is you'll actually see these 2 new things called filters and views. And this filter feature is going to be a really big aspect of your ability to navigate through the transparency portal. So I just want to point out to everyone that it's near the bottom of the left sidebar. That's how you get there. So let me show you in live what it could be, how for us to look up something. Liz, is there something you want to find out with me? Ask a question that we could demo live for everyone?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to look at housing, and then I'd also look at arts and culture if possible.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure folks would like to look at the police department.
Okay.
And so maybe we could start with housing, though, because it's definitely on a lot of folks' minds.
Okay, what particular thing about housing would you want to know more about?
So, we want to see, because the mayor is out there talking about how this is a just recovery budget, and I'm not quite sure if it is, and I don't think it is. And she's promoting a lot about how much extra funding is going into housing. So wanting to really look at both, there is and I wanted to let folks know too, there is a difference between restricted and unrestricted funds. And restricted funds there's a very specific funding source, and that money has to go to very specific things. And then there's a difference between that and the unrestricted areas, which is generally covered under the general fund, right? And so I want to really look at, aside from some of the restricted funding that is going to housing, but looking at where in the general funds are we prioritizing housing and how we're going to take care of folks.
Okay.
Because we have a tsunami of evictions coming.
Okay, yeah, so Liz, a great question, and I'm going to repeat it out loud because I think a big part of understanding how to really use Transparency Portal is what is the question you're asking. So
that's
what
a really good statement, Ecat.
Yes.
Thank you. And I think that's a good thing for folks to know, right? Is what's the question that you're asking?
So the question that I hear Liz asking in particular is she wants to know for the housing department, how much of the housing department is coming from the general purpose fund in particular versus restricted funds.
Yeah.
And the reason why Liz wants to know what's coming from the general purpose fund is because the general purpose fund is discretionary.
Yes.
And that's really, for Liz's particular interest, she wants to know, are we using discretionary money for housing?
Right.
So for that question, I really do think that this first report that you see is highlighted in this little green right now, the financial proposed data, is where we can start. It's often, I think, where most people want to do a lot of their work. But you can see I'm scrolling down now to the filters section. And this is where you can really understand how filters are really your friends to do this drilling down into different parts of the budget.
Mhm.
So you'll see here that we have these boxes that basically allow you to show different kinds of items. Expenses and revenues are two boxes that I think in this particular first category, people are going to really care about, but there's also this breakdown of FTE count, which FTE is city speak for like a staff person, where one full-time employed staff person. And then there's this fourth category called revenue and expenditures. You can see that there's this second drop-down menu, which allows you to break things down by fund, department type, and expense type. And then the third feature, and this is the feature that's really, again, going to really help you do the drilling down, is this filtered by box. And in particular, I'm going to click on this particular line for departments, which you'll notice now creates this pop-up menu. Now, ours is pretty simple. We just want to go look at housing, which you can see is right down here, but currently everything is clicked as to be shown in this data. So a quick tip that I recommend everyone do is to hit this button, the all, and you can see that everything has been removed.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to click on housing in particular.
Awesome.
And you'll see right now that when we've clicked on housing, what people can now see is the budget particularly for housing. And you can see that there are these different categories: personnel, operations, internal services, capital, and debt or other. And you can see again down here that this is also broken down into a table. And you can actually open up this little divot, or caret is what we call it, to get an even further breakdown. But what you can see right here is that we have these different items, and you can see how much is being spent overall across housing's budget. And you can see this total breakdown below, where you can see where this money is coming from. So I think, because housing is actually my particular department, that what I can show you is I can show you how much is being broken down by the funds. And you can see right here, there's general purpose funds, and there is the special revenue funds. This is what Liz was talking about, is the difference between restricted and unrestricted. Our general funds is our general purpose funds. And if you, again, you scroll down here to this particular category, you can see to this question, Liz, that you have as to what is actually general purpose funds that is being used for unrestricted purposes. We have what is called the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And you can see by this budget, right, what we spent in 1920 was about 2.8 million. But what we had allocated for this particular year was 18 million. What we have allocated for this year is, for the first year of the new budget, would be 13 million. And what we have allocated for the second year of the proposed budget is about 13.6 million. So does this get to kind of one of your questions? I think if we open up this special revenue funds, you can see the same thing, this breakdown by all the different kinds of funds that this housing gets. And you can see again, this is where OpenGov gets a little bit clunky, but you can see again for this particular year in housing, we have this 10 million proposed from a fund that's called the State of California Other. And I can tell you that this 10 million is what is coming from Project Home Key.
So I'm just going to read something from the Facebook Live feed, a comment from Oakland Starting Smart and Strong. Their organizations had a focus group with community members, one of our websites, to get feedback on how to make it more user-friendly. So definitely, folks, if you want to get on there and share a little bit more about, how to utilize this platform better, like get on one of those focus groups. But what I'm really interested here is to, yeah, like so that was that 10 million home key that was this year for 2021-22, right?
Yeah, it was. So it was in this, so great thing is about OpenGov is you can expand a
Mhm.
divot caret, or you can subtract, you can basically, collapse it again. So that
Yeah.
10 million, Liz, is what you saw in this green bar. It's a
Mhm.
part of that 39 million in total being dedicated from housing. So to answer your question of how is this budget using general purpose funds,
Right,
you can see it's 15 million
right.
versus 39 million. And if you want to see which particular general funds it is, you can see that of the general purpose fund in particular, of that 15 million, only 30,000 or so is being used. The majority of it is coming from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that's something for folks to really know and understand, right? Is that in it outside of some of the funds that are really specifically allocated and went after for housing, that isn't being prioritized by the city, by the
Yeah.
mayor's office.
And to answer it kind of, Liz, you may have people in the audience saying, well, what do I even know? What is an affordable housing trust fund? What does that even mean? Or
Right,
what is like, I go into the special revenue funds and I
right,
see something like HUD home. What does that even mean?
right.
Well, actually, we actually provide a place in the budget book where you can learn what each of these funds are dedicated to. So I'm going to switch over really quickly to the landing page again. And
Mm-hmm,
I'm going to go over to this table of contents.
mm-hmm,
And I'm going to click specifically on the special revenues funds
mm-hmm.
in
Yeah.
particular.
Mm-hmm,
And you can actually go in here and we'll describe each of the special revenue funds. So when I was talking about HUD home,
mm-hmm.
that is Fund 2109.
Right,
And this is where we give you a little bit of detailed information as to what this fund is.
right.
So let me go back to the transparency portal, because I know we're not done. And there's much more that you want to explore. So let me
And you
go
can go
back
back to the
there.
landing page. If you're on the transparency portal, you could just scroll all the way to the bottom, and you can also click on that if you've somehow closed the tab for the landing page, because it's always
Exactly.
at the very bottom.
Yep.
I found that really useful.
Yeah, see this right here, it says Oakland's homepage on the
Mhm.
transparency portal. That will bring you back to the landing page.
Yeah.
So do you want to check out, you said something about cultural, arts and
Yeah.
culture?
Yeah, arts and culture. And yeah, because we have seen like arts and culture is one of those things too that one, I think we all just need to think about incorporating the same way that we think about environmental justice, the way we think about um, economic justice, the way we think about all of the things incorporated into all of these different priorities, and arts and culture is not generally seen as a priority, but it is actually the thing that we all go to first, right? So when you say violence prevention, what's one of the first programs that get put out there? Arts and culture programs, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go into youth programming, a lot of it is arts and culture programs, right? Music and art and food and all of those things. But we've seen a decline in the cultural affairs department, and being able to see, I want to take a deeper dive if that is a priority again in the city or
Yeah,
by this mayor.
so if I am hearing you correctly in terms of
Mhm.
what is the question we're asking the transparency portal.
Mhm. Oh, I feel like I'm in front of like a magic ball.
Yes, it is, what is
You
your
need to
wish?
you need to put a hat on with a big jewel on the front and a
Yeah.
feather.
So the question I'm hearing you ask is, what is the current budget for culture and arts?
Yes.
So that's a great question, because in some ways, if you don't really know what you're looking for, maybe you don't even know what department it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I recommend again that the filter feature is your friend. So I'm going to go back to the filter feature.
Hi, friend.
Hi, friend. Just orient everyone. We're in the financial proposed full data report,
Mm-hmm.
and scrolling down to on the sidebar to the filter feature.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, I'm going to go to departments, and I'm just going to let me just type in arts and see what I find. Oh, look, these two particular sub-departments or divisions came up in particular.
Mm-hmm.
There's something under Parks and Rec, and there's something under Economic Workforce Development. Were you referring, Liz, particularly to the Economic and Workforce Development budget?
I was specifically looking at cultural affairs.
Cultural affairs. Well,
Yeah.
great. So let me deselect everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to reselect cultural affairs, which I've learned. I mean, I knew this as a budget person, but for anyone who's watching, you now have learned that this is under the Economic Workforce Development. And I am now going to click out of that to see what is the money being spent on the Cultural Affairs Department. So you can see here right now that the majority of it is personnel. A larger portion of it is operations. And you can see right now the breakdown in the table itself. But I wonder, is there a particular thing that you're interested in knowing a little bit more about, Liz?
Yeah, I wanted to, I mean, one, if I'm looking at this budget and I think about, am I correct? And I see 1.5, a little over $1 million in the budget.
Well, the total budget,
the personnel
budget
is $1 million. The total
Yeah.
budget looks like 2 million.
Yeah, 2.3
3
million.
million.
And if we want to break it down by operations and maintenance, you can see that it's a breakdown of 795,000, 408,000 for contract services for the operations and maintenance.
Yeah, and if I were to look at this, right, if I were to take myself back to 2013 budget of Cultural Affairs Division and, taxed it to, like set it up to inflation, that this is far short of the potential 3.5 million that Cultural Affairs could have been continued to be budgeted at over the last 7 years.
Yeah.
The administration, and it hasn't been. And so it's good to see that there's increase to the budget, but it also is still falling short of what this city really needs.
And I wonder, for a follow-up question for you, Liz, if you were a question I would take myself one step more, is like maybe understanding where the Cultural Affairs gets their money from.
Yes, thank you.
And you can see, I just basically, I was at expense type in this little category right here, but I switched it over to funds, and you can see that a large portion of where the Cultural Affairs gets its money from is from the general purpose fund or general funds. But I imagine overwhelmingly, yes, it's the general purpose fund. So if this was, say, something that you wanted to see increased in the budget, you can see that, and I'm gonna switch it up on folks. Let's do this. Pie graph.
Got fancy.
You can see that most of what is coming for the Cultural Affairs is coming from the general fund itself. And it doesn't matter which year you do it at.
Right. So it feels like
another way, and then the last thing I would show is like you can actually look at revenues versus expenditures, and I'm going to do this as a stacked graph. But you can see in general that we actually have more we have a difference between how much we're expending and how much revenue that we have for this, which this is like revenue that's specifically tagged or has been allocated.
Right.
And this again is a level of detail that you wouldn't necessarily get in prior budgets, because it's actually very hard to display this information. But it allows you to really understand, where does this particular small department get its money from?
Right. And I think that that's a good piece to see, right? Because if you know, we're dependent on, like, cultural affairs is dependent on specific funding sources, and we're constantly leaning on where the general fund is and how much they can provide from the general fund. Then it becomes about budget priorities, and it really focuses in on the morality of the budget itself, right?
Yes.
So then if you then look at it, it's like, oh, wow, our expenses are really high, but we're not trying to find ways to fund arts and culture, one, in its
Right.
own restricted funds, but within the general fund, to see that arts, the cultural affairs department is only allocated, I think it was 2.3.
Yeah,
for-
2.3 million. Yeah.
From the general fund, how much was
Yep.
it?
Well,
Yeah.
2.3, if we were to, so let me go back to expenses, and then I'm going to break it down by funds. You have 1.6.
1.6. So only 1.6 million coming out of our general fund. And if we were compare that to the police department, which is, you know, huge, it's like for the general fund, I think it's 355 million. Is that right? Out of the general fund?
You probably have a good guesstimate of that.
Thanks.
And
so
yeah,
if I looked at that,
yeah,
I think this is the narrative part of it, right? Of the budget that I think a lot of folks, maybe they kind of begin to gloss over it. But when we compare, then we can say like, oh, I see where the mayor's priorities is not for arts and culture, is not about creating a space in our city where artists and culture can really thrive.
Yeah, and to that question that you raised, Liz, I will say, because I was formerly working at the city of San Francisco before I got to come to the town, but in the city of San Francisco, they have a specific part of their hotel tax dedicated to their cultural arts programs. And so that money is coming in a particular way through a particular fund.
Yeah.
Well, I know we got a couple more minutes, so yep. I do want to show people probably the one part of the budget that they're going to have a lot of questions about, and I'm going to go back to the landing page to discuss it, which is police. So police, you know, is something that everyone is concerned about, and this particular page that have my mouse at, the police budget transparency information page, is where we set up specific information for people to really truly understand the budget set for police. And so I want to note here that this first particular graph you can see is discussing the amount of police that we have in the city. And you'll notice right here, not all graphs across OpenGov have this, but this particular graph has this little icon that says click to explore data. And when you click on that, what happens is it brings you back into the transparency portal, and it shows you information particularly about the police. And what I want to point out to people is in this particular setup at the summary level, which is this button right here, you see how the police are budgeted across these particular bureaus. But then when you click the details tab, we're actually showing you how each individual unit or each individual, how that's broken down at a more unit level.
Yeah.
And what you can do, and I just want to show you this mouse, you can actually open up certain columns more.
Yeah.
So that may be going to the kind of the glitchy issue that people are talking about. So like, for instance, I'm going to open up this column more that shows different kinds of police officers. And then you'll notice that there are these like caret divots next to each of these columns. You can actually sort in here, and you can look up something like, if I'm going to say I'm going to look up sergeant, it shows you this particular, it's now filtered by the sergeant level and where that is. And you can look at it per bureau. And the org code basically represents each bureau. So again, if you want to look at, say, the ceasefire division as a particular item, you could either look at it, you could either look it up here. I'm going to look it up here, but you can see, for instance, how many police sergeants are dedicated to the ceasefire division and what that means in terms of shift hours, and the pay period, as well as if you scroll all the way over to the right, we actually tell you what the cost is of this particular assignment. And so this is an opportunity for people to really go into depth. And I haven't had a chance to point this out yet. So hopefully people have been waiting around to see this, but there's this feature up at the top right corner called the download option. And you can actually download data from the transparency portal, and you can download it by all fiscal years so that you can actually use your own Excel wizardry or whatever kind of data number crunching wizardry to look at this information. And so you can do that with any of the, any of these reports that have the 4 dots next to them to download that information. And I believe the information downloading ability on other reports are different.
Yeah.
But I just want to point out to everyone that going back to this page on the police and their budget, there's a breakdown of the academies, and there's also this information about OPD overtime,
right,
where you can look at again at the overtime, and that's something too that you can also find within the transparency portal itself. As you can see that there is a report specifically called the police overtime report, and that is where you can look at this at the either the summary level or at the detail level, and where we indicate what is the kind of overtime, for how much, what kind of overtime. And again, you can change this information around in terms of which one you want to scroll and see more of, and you can download this information up here.
right.
So I just want to give this information out to everyone so that they can really understand how they can start looking at things. And I believe if you want to compare what the police overtime is compared to everywhere else, if you go into the expenditure by type page, we actually have all the way down here a breakdown of all the different departments that use overtime. And you can click, you actually have to click inside this table like I have, and then use your arrow keys on your keyboard to actually scroll through the years.
Right.
And that may be one of those glitches that Jaime found, because
Right.
sometimes it may not be entirely obvious, and we apologize for that, but that's one of those things that we're learning about OpenGov Live that we're trying to fix. But this will give you an idea of how overtime is delegated across the city. So I hope this was a really exciting, thrilling.
It was
I hope
thrilling.
I hope people were just as thrilled watching as I was showing everyone around. But the purpose of this portal and the budget document is to really give people the ability to make some of those side-by-side comparisons that you were talking about, Liz.
Right.
And I didn't even talk about the social media share function of it all. But there, if you all noticed, there was a social media share function on the side.
Oh, I did not see that one. So that's good to know
I'll
too,
share the screen.
Yeah, because
let me show you.
We can also
you see here on the right hand side.
Oh yeah.
There's a Facebook button as well as a Twitter button.
Oh,
so if I wanted to share in particular, this data visualization of the police overtime in the share portal, in the transparency portal, I apologize. I'm getting so excited. My words are they're kind of coming together. But in the transparency portal, you can also share something to Facebook or Twitter. And so you could share with people a particular graph that you found.
Yeah, and I think that this is also, you're ending with the police overtime, and it is showing that, it is sort of, there is a legitimizing of the actual spending of the police department. And it's interesting to see which departments are doing the overtime and for why. But there are a lot of departments in there that I noticed that aren't spending as much as the police department. So that is important for folks to know about. Again, like the budget is a moral document. It shows the city and the mayor's priorities at this point. And so now we're asking folks to really show up to city council meetings, to show up to their town halls, to talk about the priorities that really are hitting home for folks, right? So investing in housing, investing in our worker protections, investing in city services, investing in arts and culture, and reimagining public safety. I think these are really important pieces because what I think this budget portal doesn't take us back decades, right? And I don't think any budget does at this point. But like if we were to go back and look, just like the continual disinvestment in our communities and at those services for housing, for cultural arts, for homelessness services, all of these things have continually been working at a place of deficit and working from a place of disinvestment. And so we really want to ask folks to look at the budget, take deeper dives, call your city council member and talk to them about what priorities you see. And Refund Coalition in Oakland is really working on what those could look like. And so we'll be having some volunteer opportunities so that you could talk to other folks and learn yourself about Refund Coalition's priorities for the budget. So thank you, Ecat, for coming on. I really appreciate you and all the work that you do and your whole department and the whole Bureau for the work I know that you all invested in doing. It's too bad that the mayor couldn't put out her budget in a timely manner enough so that you all could share this information out, but hopefully this platform will let folks know how to use the platform. So I've spent the last week just trying to learn. And so you shared a little bit more about its deeper functionalities, and I really appreciate that. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for letting us come and show you the work of what we've done. This is just the beginning of what OpenGov can offer. And, we hope that this tutorial, especially since it's been recorded, is something that people can turn to and learn how to use particular features. But it is, it is our intent that, that this provides people with a better way to analyze the information so that, the community can decide what it is that they really want to have funded. And so I always say that this is the fun part of the budget process when the community gets to give their input. So just let you all know, that we are listening. And, as Liz has already shared, it is truly your elected officials who are the ones who will be representing what it is you want. So please talk to them. And, if you do find glitches or any kind of things like that, be communicating with the city of Oakland via our various different digital feedback platforms so that we can know what to fix. And just know that we are working our best to do this. Like I said, we didn't realize we were going to become website developers as a part of providing this information, but we are doing our best to learn as quickly as possible so that the community is really equipped to understanding this budget.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in 2 weeks. I will see you in a week, everybody else, for the next Monday Meals. And that one we'll be having eBase, East Bay Alliance for Sustainable Economy, to come on and talk about workers' protections and how the budget might also reflect that, and the fights that we're having around that. So appreciate you all. See you next week. Bye. Thanks, Ecat.
Bye.